Hello and welcome to a video. I'm going to talk about my experience with back pain or back injuries, lower back pain. I'm going to do a few different videos for different. I'm going to do a lower body, upper body, and a back one. Starting with the back one, I've had multiple disc herniations, and then other kind of non-specified lower back pain, which has just been general kind of tightness and numbness in my lower back and down my leg. The two disc herniations I had were both lower back, and they had sciatic nerve pain associated with it, so running down the right leg. Of all the injuries I've had, the back pain one's generally the most frustrating. It seems to be the most unpredictable in terms of pain, in terms of flare-ups, and the most long-lasting. Like it kind of, you think it's gone, and then you feel better, and then it comes back over nothing. Whereas with the shoulder injury, and even with this current hip injury, even though I've just had surgery, the timeline is quite progressive, and it is quite like, unless you rip all the muscles off the bone again, it's going to be quite linear. Whereas with the back pain, it was like, one day I would do, heavy snatches and be absolutely fine the next day. And then another session, I would just do some walking lunges, like light, and then I'd be like bedbound for another few days. So the hardest thing with the lower back pain one was definitely just getting over the fact of or getting used to the fact that it's very unpredictable. You have to just listen to your body. It's also quite debilitating if it's to the point where you can't do anything. So even with this hip one, I can't put any pressure through my left leg, but I can still do my right leg a lot, so I can still train my right leg, I can still train my upper body. With the back pain, sometimes if it's really bad and it's really kind of spasming the lower back, you can't really do much without pain. You can always do something. I believe that's that's true for any injury. You can always do something, and I advise you to. But that, it can be a bit more debilitating. It also, like I said, it leads you into a false sense of security sometimes, and you feel good, and then obviously you have a flare up and you get a setback. So what I wanted to kind of get across is that in the early days, it's best to, in the first, if you've done something where you feel it kind of pop or you feel like a sharp pain, is probably to just reduce the load a little bit, and just take a day or so off. I do think, just to let it settle down. When I say off, I don't mean just lay in bed all day. I mean just off heavy training. I think you've got to, early as possible, you've got to find what you can do without flaring it up consistently, and just do that. So for me, it was a lot of ab work, which did help a lot, and a lot of hip flexor, not even mobility, but hip flexor strengthening, actually seemed to make my back pain go away. And then anytime I got a glute pump was tremendous. So walking lunges were great. Anything that was just, as soon as I got a glute pump, my back pain, even in the peak of it, would go away for kind of a day or two. And I'd be able to fully train as normal for a couple of days before it would start creeping back in. No idea what that's about. Obviously I had sciatica, so it was probably to do with that. I'm not a medical professional, as you know. The big thing for me that's a recurring factor was actually my diaphragm would get kind of wouldn't fully open and close, or inhale and exhale. So working on that deep breathing and trying to release it helped me a lot. And it wasn't until I saw someone specifically about that I had any idea that even existed and that was even a thing. So that, along with some like rib mobility exercises, were really good, really useful for me. And the other one was just load management, so just being smart with the load, not doing anything stupid, not especially if it was a compression-based injury where you think you've kind of overloaded it. The best way is to kind of decompress it and trying to just gradually decompress it, but it doesn't necessarily mean do nothing. You have to listen to your body as much as you can. You have to listen to your body and actually follow along with what the body is saying, and take notes on what makes it feel better, what makes it feel worse, and do the stuff you can do. And then slowly reintegrate back to weightlifting again, if that's your goal. If weightlifting injured it, then obviously you might not reintegrate that straight away. But the sooner you get back to doing some, the better, I feel. Even if it's just with a bar or the training bar, or even a stick. just so you can get used to the movement again. I do believe in the kind of heal it how you hurt it mantra, where whatever you did to get the injury, you heal it that way. So if you hurt yourself doing a heavy clean, for example, you need to get doing cleans as soon as possible. Not heavy cleans necessarily, but gradually build back up, and get to a point again where you can start to push them again with no pain. So with back pain specifically, the things to look out for is like numbness down the leg. If you have pain going to the toilet, they're the big things. Whereas like if you feel it, get to A&E as soon as possible. Especially with the toilet one, because that'll indicate like a spinal cord issue. The likelihood of getting an MRI is depending on how bad it is. When I had an MRI that showed I had a herniated disc, it was useful to know, but it didn't really change the rehab as such. The rehab is still exactly the same. I still have to listen to my body and just gradually reintroduce stuff. So it wasn't as... whereas with my hip, I assumed it was a torn adductor. If I didn't have an MRI, I wouldn't have known that it was torn off the bone. And I would have just waited, and then my surgery would have been significantly less successful. With the back, because I've just had a herniated disc and there's not really much... They're not really going to do surgery on it anyway, if it's just one. Because a lot of people apparently have herniated discs anyway with no pain. So you have to just take it as it comes. You have to accept that it might be a long-term thing, and just gradually it'll get better and better, but it will flare up at random times, even when you don't expect it. And the other piece of advice I've got are mainly around mobilising the hips. Usually if your lower back flares up, it'll spasm a little bit, which is debilitating. It feels like you can't move because the whole lower back's in spasm. A lot of the times doing the hip flexor and hamstring kind of split style stretches really useful to open up the hips again if they've tightened up. And then things like cat-cow, where you're doing it segmentally and trying to do it kind of one spine segment at a time. If you're someone who's unbelievably mobile and can easily do the splits, it's one of those ones where it's probably not that. But if you're a heavier male, and you have it might be something that really gives you pain relief. So bear that in mind. And then the other one is just a hot water ball. Laying on a hot water ball on my back would be unbelievable with my knees up, because then it would just completely decompress the back and allow the kind of back to relax. And then try to find the thing that caused it. So for me, it's going to be different for everyone. For me, I think what caused it was actually just the imbalance in my shoulder and my hips, which meant that I was overloading one side more, and the back was just the first thing to give way. I wouldn't say necessarily my back was the issue, it just was the first break in the chain, and that was the first thing that popped, because of my shoulder or because of my hip, which is going to be even worse now. So general things to take away with the lower back pain is listen to the body as much as you can. Definitely do ab work and activate it. Keep it mobilized as much as you can, not necessarily under load, but like with the cat-cows, for example. Breathing exercises and kind of gradual reintroduction of core stability stuff. And then the other one would just be that mental side of it is don't expect it to just be plain sailing. It probably won't be. It'll probably be very up and down. And the sooner you can get to that, the sooner you can understand that and accept that, the better. But I will admit that when the back, if you have like a herniated disc, for example, when the pain is there, it is one of the most debilitating pains I've had in terms of injuries and in terms of stopping me from doing other stuff, because it's just obviously it's your back, isn't it? So it's just any movement you do, getting off the toilet, laying in bed, like it can hurt and it is bad. So that's why a lot of people, rightly so, go to A&E, because they feel like I've done something horrendously bad to my spine. Hopefully it's just muscular or disc, and it's not a spinal cord thing. But just listen to your body as much as you can. And then the other thing I would say that's helped me mentally, which I'm going to probably say in every video, is not to think of it as a comeback necessarily. A lot of the times when you get injured, people say, oh yeah, the comeback's going to be epic. I appreciate what they're trying to say. Obviously they're trying to make you feel better and trying to feel nice. Constantly just thinking of something as a comeback can be a bit depressing, especially if, like me, you've had a couple of major injuries where you keep having long comebacks. It's a bit like, well, why does it have to be a comeback? Why me again? Have to do a comeback, and it sometimes feels like you're a bit lonely. It's a bit lonely, and you're the only one having it. So, I spoke to someone else. I won't say his name because I didn't get permission, but he told me because he's just had surgery, and he told me that the thing that helped him was to not think about it like a comeback and just think of it like training, like another training block, where you can do, the stuff that you can work on, the stuff you can work on. So for me, when I did my back, flexion hurt it, so I would spend a lot of time in extension, so that's why I started doing my back bends. So the training block was geared towards improving mobility in my back and improving extension mobility and my hip mobility, which then made training feel like training again and not just rehab when the boring comeback and it's like, oh, it's going to start real slow. It's still going to be slow in terms of the exercises at the start are going to be really easy, quote unquote, and it's not going to be like a max snatch or a max flinger. It's not going to be exciting, but seeing it as training and not seeing it as start from scratch, come back. Sometimes you can, and that's really good mentally, but I think certain people mentally would do better if they just saw it as a big training block. All right, and any questions, let me know. That's just some thoughts.